The bespectacled gaze of...
Say that again.
Sorry. They eerily resembled the bespectacled gaze. I'll say it less weird.
Emphasis. Yeah.
Emphasis, yeah. So they eerily resemble the bespectacled gaze. Oh, I got fucked up too. Sorry.
Okay. Do you need some spectacles?
No,
do you know how to
I
read
don't.
this
Okay.
word? Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
And Todd. Welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design. Today we're getting all literary.
Yeah, we're getting in touch with our bookish sides.
We're not being antisocial, but we brought a couple of books to the bar.
And in spite of that phrase we all hear so often, we are going to judge these books by their covers.
So order up a couple of Tequila Mockingbirds. We've brought our library cards.
And Todd's credit card.
With us to the bar.
All right, so Todd,
nice.
Here we are.
Yes, with our Tequila Mockingbirds.
Yes, back in the bar. And a thank you for covering those. I left my wallet at home for some reason. Well, let's be honest, we both know the reason.
Yeah, I know why. Yeah.
Yeah, then the answer is Tequila Mockingbirds.
There you go. But we're talking, you know what? We've talked about books before.
Yeah. But who has the kind of time to read?
You're right. And we should be judging books by their cover. I mean, who doesn't love to go to the bookstore and just look at books?
Yeah, browse. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, if that's the word you want to use, you can use that one too. But
just look at books. Just stare at them.
And then you translated it. Yeah, browse.
I was at the store earlier today staring at Cheerios.
You mean you are browsing Cheerios?
Those sons of bitches never blink. That Captain Crunch, he's one spooky MF. Okay.
All right, let's talk about book covers.
Oh, is that what we're talking?
Yeah.
Oh,
let's
I thought we were talking about our shopping habits. Okay, Todd. So I'm going to reach under the bar here, and I'm going to. Well, before I do that, before I get out the book that I brought today, I want to talk about. This was tough. I will say I was browsing a little bit. I was looking at some book covers. And I want to talk about a couple runners up really quickly, if I may. Okay, tough decision. How many thousands and thousands and thousands of books are there?
Oh, yeah.
And so two that I love, but for different reasons just didn't quite make the cut based on the criteria for the book that I selected. So not that these aren't good, I think they're both amazing, but I'll explain why I ultimately didn't pick them. And we'll have these on our episode page. So the first book is Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison.
Oh, yeah.
So he's the author of the book, but the design and illustration is by Edward McKnight Coffer. And he was a very well-regarded illustrator and poster artist in the middle of the last century. And
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, so his book cover is very, very iconic. Invisible Man is not a new book at all, but very iconic book cover. Very sort of mid-century modern illustration. Somewhat concrete, somewhat abstract, but super cool. The other book, which is much, much, much more recent, is a book by Ta-Nehisi Coates called Between the World and Me. And that was
Uncle Ta-Nehisi, yeah.
Yeah,
Uncle Ta-Nehisi.
And that was designed by Greg Mollica. And that is more of a typographically driven cover. But I really, really like it for a couple reasons. When you zoom in on it, it actually has some texture and some grit to it. And it feels almost like it's letterpressed. And then the spine of the book has slavery posters kind of in this collage, and you know me and you know how much I love typography and collage. but the book cover typeface is from civil rights. It's a font, I think, based on civil rights signage from the 60s. And I really like it for that reason. And then part of the type on the cover is actually, I thought it was a texture, but when I actually looked at it really, really closely, it's a photograph embedded inside this sort of rough-hewn type, and it's of trees and leaves and that sort of thing. So this multi-dimensional nature of it that I really, really like and appreciate. So there's just a lot of detail. Yeah, it's very well done. Okay, so why did I not choose those? Like, what was my criteria here? And I'll be really curious to hear about the book you chose and your criteria for choosing it as well. Okay, so let me frame the book that I chose. So when I was thinking about this assignment that we had given ourselves, I was thinking two things. So first, if you were to see this on, say, a coffee table or on, I don't know, a bookshelf or something, or a stack of books in someone's house or at a bookstore, in the library, whatever, would you instantly know from a distance, almost like a poster, would you instantly know, oh, I know what that book is? Right. And then the other thing I would say is, did it influence the design of other things subsequently? And in this case, yes, there was a franchise brand that was built off the design of this initial cover. Okay, so that I just dropped a little bit of a hint, and I'm going to drop one more hint, and we'll see if you can guess this book. Okay. I could give you a major hint, and you'd be like, "Oh, it's this," but we'll see.
Well, I mean, there's a million books. Like this is not going to be easy.
Well, I'm going to let you zoom in a little bit. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
So you and I have talked before about a designer we love, Chip Kidd.
Oh yeah.
And you've talked about his Batman book in one of our earlier episodes. Okay. This was the very first book cover he designed.
Okay. Very first book cover. And you said became part of a franchise of some kind.
An entertainment franchise.
An entertainment franchise. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Give me another hint.
Okay, I
mean, he's done a million book covers, and I love all of them.
All right, Todd, I'm gonna drop the ultimate hint.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm gonna use the D word. Now, it's a big word.
Okay.
But I think you can handle this.
Okay.
Dinosaur.
You're talking Jurassic Park.
Yep. Jurassic Park, the very first book cover Chip Kidd ever. I mean, imagine getting that assignment.
Right.
This Michael Crichton novel, So he ended up, so let me tell you the story about the design of Jurassic Park, because this cover was so iconic, it was carried over in large part into the logo for the movie. So the same sort of T-Rex skeleton. So how did we get here? So Chip Kidd, and so I'll say this was really sort of a case study in both simplicity, but also impact, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to what we love about posters, because sort of like postage stamps we've been talking about recently, book covers also are really mini posters, right? They have to communicate very, very quickly, convey an idea, attract the attention of those who are, what did you say? Just looking in the store, looking at books or whatever.
Or you can say browsing.
Browsing, perhaps. Okay.
And they have to tell a complex story in just a few seconds and a little bit of real estate, because these books can be 1,000 pages or more,
and tell the story or hint at the story in a way that's intriguing without giving anything away.
Right.
So it's got to kind of have this creative tension there. Okay, so I think that his book cover does an amazing job of this. So he was tasked with designing the cover for this book back in 1990. So he had just started his work as a book cover designer at the time for Knopf, I believe, is the publisher of this, or Random House. And so he's given this assignment, and it's basically suggests the presence of dinosaurs without directly showing a living creature.
Okay.
Because if you think about Jurassic Park, it was resurrecting a creature that had been long dead, or creatures that had been long dead. So you're kind of going back in history here. So he gets this brief, and his process leads him to explore multiple conceptual ideas, sort of like what any of us would do, right? What are these different aspects or tropes of a dinosaur, right? So you think about fossilized footprints. You think about this idea. Obviously, now we have a movie, so this starts to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But the shadows that a dinosaur might cast, right? If you've ever been in a natural history museum and you've seen large dinosaur, life-size dinosaur figures, and there's spotlights shining on them, there might be a huge silhouette on the wall or something like that. The texture of their skin. They're giant lizards. But none of these things were capturing the novel's themes of genetic resurrection, power, chaos, all these. I mean, again, we've all seen the movie now, right? At the time, no one knew any of this about the story. So he's trying to figure out, again, pre-internet, right? So where does he go to get inspiration? So this is 1990. He's in New York. He decides he's going to go to the American Museum of Natural History. So while he's looking at these different dinosaur skeletons, he notices how the T-Rex commanded the room. And he's thinking, this is actually, he'd read the manuscript, so he's thinking this is a fitting parallel to the novel's dominant antagonist.
Right.
I mean, the T-Rex.
Makes sense.
Here to, kick ass and chew gum. It's all out of gum. So he sketches his skeletal structure, and he later purchases a book. You'll love this. He purchases a dinosaur book in the museum's gift shop. And in that book, he finds a 1917 skeletal diagram of a T-Rex drawn by a scientist named Henry Fairfield Osborn. This almost sounds like something out of a comic book.
Yeah.
And this illustration becomes the direct inspiration for the book cover. He didn't knock it off. Like, it's not like he used it or traced it, but it became the inspiration. So the final design of this book, so the book design is very, very simple. It's basically this T-Rex skeleton from the side, silhouetted. Right. It's bold, it's black, and it extends across the front cover, the spine, and the back panel. So why did he do that? It's sort of this idea that this threat and this idea and this T-Rex was so big, the scale was, so big, and the dominance of the creature was so large, it couldn't be contained on the front of the book, right? It had to wrap around the book. Okay. But the choice of a skeletal depiction of a dinosaur rather than a living, breathing dinosaur also served a dual purpose. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's the remains of the past, but also the rebirth of the dinosaurs through genetic engineering. So it's bringing the dead back to life. So when you think of the dead, you think of a skeleton. And then the simplicity of the silhouette allowed for instant recognition and adaptability. So this goes back to what I talked about a minute ago. It was so perfect, it made that leap from a book to a film. And of course, if you see the film, the brand is also... It's so self-referential because the branding for the film is the branding for the main attraction in the film, which I love how the fourth wall kind of gets knocked down in that way. It's really, really great. So let's talk for a second about some of his typography and some of the layout choices.
Okay.
So the title and the author's name, they were set in this sans serif typeface.
Right.
Slim sans serif, like bold, kind of thing you'd later see on sort of like, I don't know, boxing posters, kind of, sort of. So that gives you an idea. So it's this bold, chunky, utilitarian typeface. And the K in Jurassic Park was actually tweaked slightly. He modified it, altering the meeting point of its diagonal strokes to create a stronger visual anchor. So, even though he's pulling this typeface, he's willing to tweak it. So he's thinking about not only the dinosaur skeleton as an illustrative element, but also the individual typographic characters. And then he gets a little bit more utilitarian. He has this white space on the back of the book he has to work with. And so he just has this, pulls a very like working man kind of typeface, Franklin Gothic, and he starts to use that for this promotional text, and he has some attributions on the back of the book and just Times New Roman. Again, very utilitarian typeface people are familiar with. So again, it's this balance between modernity and readability, right? So the serif and the sans serif, the bold and the delicate. And again, that's sort of life, right? That's sort of the life of dinosaurs. So it's this brilliant metaphor. And then the theme park signage, was echoed in this utilitarian nature of the font choice, right? That ended up being slightly different. It was a little more chunky. It was kind of like this inline lithos, this kind of tribal Stone Age looking thing.
Yeah.
Because it had to be a little bit more cinematic. Carefully controlled attraction that ultimately spirals into chaos. So even if you look at this cover, I think today, through contemporary eyes, knowing what you know about the movies, everything seems a little bit off, right? It's not quite right. Like we talked about, the typography is a little bit funky. The placement of the skeleton is not contained. So it's like breaking loose, right? It's like, there's something about this that just, even though it's traditional in some ways, like in that it's not lush, it's not overly illustrative, it's very Spartan. It still commands attention, sort of in its weird, I don't know. It's just,
it was just really odd for the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's this sort of off-kilter like simplicity. I don't know how else to phrase it. As we wrap up here, let's go back to my main criteria, and that's really cultural impact.
Okay.
So the cover becomes this instant visual icon, and as we talked about, Spielberg saw it and he's like, why mess with perfection? So a few years later they make this film adaptation, and they use the same dinosaur silhouette. They enhance it, as I mentioned, but really the spirit of it is still the same. And I would say, even with this first edition cover, and we'll have this on our website, and maybe we'll also put the I think we could do this. Let's also put the original Jurassic Park movie logo on there too.
Okay, yeah.
So people can see what carried over and what was updated. You can see how a well-designed book cover can transcend publishing and really have a larger impact on our culture and in different media. So that's my pitch, Todd. That's my book, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. All right. Well, nice, man. You dug up a classic cover design for that one.
Yeah, and like I said, it's from one of our favorite designers.
It is. We love Chip Kidd. And if he were here now, I'd buy him a drink.
Well, he's not, and I am, so...
Oh, boy. I walked right into that one, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. We'll be right back. Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters.
Think Ghostbusters.
Iconic images.
Think Bigfoot.
Punk music.
The Ramones.
Saturday morning cartoons.
The Pink Panther.
And failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase Two Designers Walk Into a Bar.
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now, back to the bar. All right, welcome back. We're being a couple of bookworms today with our books in the bar. And Elliot was just talking about Jurassic Park, which was a book, then became a movie, and so on, and a ride and everything. So really interesting analysis there. And interesting enough, too, that was one that I had considered talking more about
But I'd already checked it out of the library, so you couldn't do it.
You did, yeah. I kept wondering where it was. The other one that I seriously considered was also designed by Mr. Chip Kidd, and it is one of my favorite authors, David Sedaris, and the artwork on the cover is painted by one of my favorite artists, Vincent van Gogh. So it was like the trifecta of my favorites in David Sedaris's book, When You're Engulfed in Flames. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
I am aware of that. I've seen Mr. Sedaris live, actually, and I know you grew up with his younger brother.
Yeah, and I got some autographed books from him, but
his younger brother?
I chose. No. Yeah, I don't think the Rooster has written any books yet. But.
No, I would just love it if he set up something where he's autographing his brother's books. I think that would be pretty amazing.
So I ultimately chose a different book for kind of similar criteria. I was thinking, what has stood the test of time? If someone mentions to me a book title, much like Jurassic Park, could I kind of doodle it out real quick?
Yeah.
And what is it, much like you said, a movie poster or even an album cover design?
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
tells you a little bit of the story. It keeps you intrigued. So you've got a visual representation of the story as you're making your way through. And I picked a very old book by a well-known author, a guy by the name of...
Is it older than a T-Rex, Todd?
No. Okay, it's not quite that old, but it is from 1925 by F. Scott Fitzgerald, a little ditty called The Great Gatsby. You heard of it?
I have heard of it.
It might be one of the most iconic books and covers in American literature. I said it. I'm going to stand by that.
Wow. Okay.
I know.
I'm not going to fight you on that. I was full disclosure.
Fight me on something else.
Yeah, I got plenty. I'll pick a fight with you right after we're done recording. I'm sure we can find something. I actually considered this book as well, so I'm very glad you picked it because I've always wondered about the history of this.
I mean, that's so wild. There are just thousands and thousands of books and good books, and when you start asking yourself which ones have kind of stood the test of time, because a lot of them the covers are redone when they're reissued, and Great Gatsby is no exception, but the original one holds up, whether you first read it in high school and had to discuss it with the class, or you're kind of looking at it later. What you think of as this haunting pair of eyes that are floating above an abstract cityscape.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is the story behind this unforgettable design and also how it has influenced culture and literature. So let me just start by saying the book itself, The Great Gatsby, was published, as I said, in 1925. And while now it's a very well-known part of American literature, it wasn't an immediate success. But what did capture the attention from the beginning was the striking dust jacket, which was designed by a Spanish artist, Francisco, also known as Francis Cugat. And the cover features this mysterious, disembodied female face, kind of a flapper face, if you will, from the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And the face is hovering over this night cityscape. If it wasn't done so early in 20th century, it would feel a little mid-century to me. And it definitely has a feeling of the Spanish artist Joan Miró's work to me. It's all disconnected kind of pieces.
Yeah.
Ghostly figures and things. Okay. Fitzgerald himself was so taken by this artwork, he integrated the imagery into his book. And I'll talk about that in just a second.
So wait, hold on.
Okay.
So he completes the book.
Yeah.
Turns in the manuscript.
Sort of. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to understand. So did this art already exist, or was it commissioned for the book and then he saw it and then what was the order of things here?
Yes. He was writing the book.
Uh-huh.
He was working to finish the book. The art was commissioned by Cugat. Sketches were shared with Fitzgerald, and he was like, whoa. And actually, let me read a quote from him. that he actually wrote to his editor at the time. He said, "For Christ's sake, don't give anyone that jacket. You're saving for me. I've written it into the book." So, yeah.
That's one way to corner, I guess, the art market. Just like, put it in the story, and then tough luck. You can't have it.
Yeah, there you go.
Author number 2. Take that, Hemingway.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that name as well. I've got a review from Mr. Hemingway on this in just a second.
Okay,
but let me tell you a little bit about the artist first, because that leads into it. As I said, his name was Francis Cugat, and he was born in Barcelona in 1893. He moved to Cuba before eventually making his way to the United States. He's primarily known as a portrait painter and a set designer. And he was commissioned by Scribner's publishing house to create this cover for Fitzgerald's forthcoming novel. And here's the weird thing, Elliot. This would be the only book cover he ever designed.
Man, so the mic drop.
Yeah,
this.
He kind of got it, right, after that one.
Yeah, you just drop the brush, dust off your hands. My work here is done, and then walk off into the sunset.
Here. Yeah, I'm done here. Oh, yeah, and he got $100. So he's like, "Give me my $100, and I'm out of your life forever, dude."
Pay me to go away. Yeah. Okay, I like that.
So he has this background, like I said, in set design and opera posters, and that was kind of evident in the dramatic, dreamlike quality of the painting, which is titled Celestial Eyes.
Oh, okay.
And this blend of Art Deco elegance of the painting with this surreal, I would say melancholy look makes it stand out from other traditional literary covers of the time. And just, you know how I love pulling on a pop culture thread, Elliot.
Here we go. All right.
Francis Cugat, maybe you recognize that last name? Francis was the older brother of Xavier Cugat, the famous band leader. He was a rival of Ricky Ricardo, and he was Charo's husband for a brief time. Gucci. Yeah. So I love it. Okay. I love when things come together.
Yeah, again, you can't make this stuff up, right?
No, you can't. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about the symbolism and interpretation of that. As I said, there's this pair of looming eyes, oddly enough, because the painting's called Celestial Eyes. And they belong to this female flapper. They eerily resemble the gaze of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg's billboard from the novel. And it might have been a minute since anyone has read this, but in the story, this forgotten advertisement billboard, it watches over the desolate Valley of Ashes, which is a symbol of moral decay and the illusion of the American dream. So
I thought our bar was that, so it's nice to know that that's our nickname of our bar is the Valley of Ashes.
I like that. So I said he wove this into the novel. He actually wrote, "The eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg are blue and gigantic. Their retinas are 1 yard high. They look out of no face, but instead from a pair of enormous yellow spectacles which pass over a non-existent nose."
Ooh,
so
I love that. Yeah.
I know, yeah. So you can just think of that, this eerie billboard with eyes, and no face. Beyond the eyes of the book cover, we see these small nude figures within the irises, and possibly representing Gatsby's idolized vision of Daisy Buchanan, who he obsesses for, he longs for, ultimately proves unattainable. Anyway.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry. Come on, dude. The book's 100 years old. So there's a tear beneath one eye that adds to this overarching theme of loss and disillusionment, unfulfilled dreams.
Well, that's Gatsby's first kill.
Yeah.
It's a tattoo, right? He got in prison.
That one went over my head, but came right back.
Whack! Like a boomerang.
Whack! Yeah, I got that one.
Okay.
So below all that, the tear leads to this blurred, sparkling, very colorful, splashy cityscape that kind of suggests New York's fast-paced, glittering allure that's both sort of grand and empty. And, people even said, hey, it kind of looks like Coney Island because there's some circular shapes, could be a Ferris wheel. But it's very sort of almost abstract expressionism, very energetic brushstrokes.
Well, we're both fans of Coney Island. We've talked about that before, too.
Yes, of course, we are.
All right, so I want to know about Hemingway. You hinted at Hemingway.
I've kept you waiting long enough.
Yeah.
Hemingway, known to have an opinion. In his memoir, A Movable Feast, he says, and I quote, "Scott brought the book over. It had a garish dust jacket, and I remember being embarrassed by the violence, bad taste, and slippery look of it." He goes on to say, "It looked like the book jacket for a book of bad science fiction. Scott told me not to be put off by it. It had to do with the billboard along the highway in Long Island that was important to the story. I took it off and read the book."
It's not enough that when the book was open, he couldn't see it. He just wanted no part of it.
He was like, I just had to take it off. But F. Scott Fitzgerald assured him that it was a crucial part of the book's meaning. Anyway.
I love it, though, that the author's defending the design of his cover.
Yeah. I mean, and you think about the time when this was done. This was the Jazz Age.
Yeah.
And it really was very different from other book cover design of the time, which were probably literally illustrating a scene of some kind.
Yeah, it would have the main characters on there. It was probably much more symmetrical, much more traditional. I mean, this was so much more abstract. And like you said, it felt very, I don't know, Broadway drama.
Yeah.
And
it was sad.
Yeah, it was a different level of sophistication, for sure.
That's a good way to say it. And everyone knows The Great Gatsby has been adapted into numerous films, and most recently with Leonardo DiCaprio. And maybe that's the one where he wore the bear suit.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember that from the book, but maybe they added that. Anyway, it's even been put into a stage production and an opera. And, it's had different book covers, of course, but this one remains really iconic and enduring. And the design is frequently referenced in pop culture, from movie posters to fashion editorials. When you think about a movie poster that might have a big hero image kind of subtle in the back, and then there's a scene like Raiders of the Lost Ark even that has this little thing going on at the bottom. So
yeah, it's sort of the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman of book covers.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been reimagined in various styles and is even widely sold now in posters, prints, and merchandise on sites like Etsy. It's just that iconic.
Yeah, it's ubiquitous. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah. So, interestingly, the novel critiques the hollowness of the Jazz Age's glitz and glamour, and the cover's aesthetic has often been embraced as a celebration of that era. But it's also kind of this juxtaposition. It's this, it adds to that mystique of the era. It's glitzy, it's bright, it's colorful, yet it's lonely.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and all that for $100.
$100.
Yeah.
Hey, look, that's cheaper than your bar tab right now.
How do you know how much my bar tab is?
Hey, what? Yeah, me?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Now. Yeah, I'll be right there. Hey,
yes.
Todd. Sorry, I've got to run, but I appreciate you hanging out.
All right.
I got to get this book back to the library. I don't have all day.